it going, everybody? Thought I'd do a ad read from the studio, and this podcast is sponsored by Firecracker Farm. Alex and his family grow hot peppers out of Florida and infusing them into sea salt. You'll see right behind me, I've got a nice display of the brick, which has got the three kings, Ghost, Scorpion, and Reaper in it. And I've been using their product for a couple years. I've got all their different flavors: Pineapple Express, Apocalypto, uh, Justin's Blend Snake Eater. Really awesome stuff. Enjoy using them on everything from eggs to steak, different recipes and salads, um, all over the place. And now, proud to announce that I asked Alex to make me a flavor that I inspired and told him to make. Is now out. It is the yuzu. Just came out. It's up on the website, firecracker.farm. I have a promo code, Food Origins Pod C, for 10% off. Also, part of the proceeds go to Operation 300 and Pipe Hitter Foundation. Appreciate the support and hope you guys enjoy the new product with the yuzu hot salt. If you do get the bundle, you'll get a refill with it and the awesome push grinder, of course, that you guys see me using on social media quite a bit. And I use this pretty much every day. So hope you guys enjoy. Looking forward to hearing what you guys think of it. Appreciate the support. Take care. Enjoy the episode. Because it's like they want to see a story and they want to see, like, oh, he turned the lights on, started the grill. He went back inside. He's prepping the chicken and
Yeah,
marinating it. And then, okay, what's he putting on there? Some seasoning. Okay, he's letting the grill heat up. Does he put tallow on there, or butter, or oil? Then throw it on, cook it, and then put it all together. That it'd be kind of cool to have like some sort of storyboard film like that on a lot of my
yeah.
cooks, because I feel like that's the part I want to show, and it's just getting it done right. Because like I'm not that great at it. I've
No,
done a bunch
it's
of
a
different
challenge.
stuff.
I've of course just trial and errored my way through to what seems to be attractive to the public and to work pretty repeatably. But yeah, the food stuff is amazing, man. I'm sort of sometimes envious of that genre of content because I'm pretty passionate about food in general and love like cooking is a fulfilling creative outlet for my mind and so anyway, I've always been a little bit envious of some of the more dedicated food content. I think it's a cool subject matter to try to capture.
Yeah. On that note, 100%. Let's kick off the podcast. Today, welcome to another episode of the Food Origins Podcast. Today, I'm awesome guest today, Mark Bonnalie, out of Northwest Idaho. Some of you may know him as the modern rural civilian,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
appreciate you coming on, Mark. We got a lot to talk about. You got a lot going on
Yeah.
project wise, and if you guys don't know Mark, he is a fully basically off grid homesteader, and he's done a lot of stuff before that, and constantly doing different projects. And I wanted to have him on just because of the wide range of skill set you have. Whether it's growing your own food, storing it, and kind of get into the food side of things too. So, Mark, appreciate you coming on. Easy question is, where'd you grow up and what'd you eat when you were a kid?
Yeah, sure. um So I grew up here in Idaho. I bounced around the country a little bit in my younger days, but returned back to very close to where I was born and raised. This acreage that we bought is about really close, probably like 45 minutes from the small little town of 3,500 people in north central Idaho that I was born and raised in, and actually both of my parents still live there and grew up there. I guess pretty small town American story. Like we have a lot of the same high school teachers between my parents and myself, so not a lot changing in the rural small Idaho towns. But that's where I was raised and kind of had a more I would just say kind of a more open mind than what I was surrounded by in such a small little town growing up, and wanted to run from this place as quickly as I could, early on in life and get far, far away. But the more you see, the more you know. Um, in I guess it was in about 2007, I moved back to 2008, maybe. I moved back to Idaho and have been here ever since, and appreciate it more now than probably I ever did. It's definitely been discovered here more since the 2020, people shifting around the country quite a lot, but we're still we're still off in our own little bubble, and the beauty is um, unmatched in my opinion. So,
What do you think sparked that interest to kind of go travel for a little bit and then come back?
uh, I just personally, I didn't feel like okay. So the little town that I was born and raised in is primarily a logging and timber industry type of um, economy, and so most of a lot of the residents of that area, not to poke at them at all, but from my perspective back, my young perspective back then, I was really into to art. I was really into creative passions and things like that, and the surroundings that I grew up in was really more like go get your hands dirty. Stop messing around with these bonkers ideas and get to work, right? So,
Yeah, be
um,
realistic.
yeah, yeah, and I probably could have benefited from hearing a little bit more of that, but in the grand scheme of life, that was the biggest thing that just didn't resonate with me at that stage of life. I really um, wanted to experience culture, food, art, um, travel, like just different walks of life, and I've definitely been blessed to have experienced a lot of those things in the meantime prior to coming back to Idaho. So,
Yeah, for sure. What'd you eat growing up?
I can't say that. Okay, so a bulk of what we did as a family in those like 1980s and early 90s was hunting. We weren't a real wealthy, don't come from money by any means, and we we took advantage of the Idaho outdoors, and I hunted with my dad and my uncle pretty consistently every year. So um, outside of wild game and fish, which was definitely just a layer to the cake. It wasn't the staple by any means. I'm not trying to um, paint a picture that isn't accurate to the time frame that I grew up in. But my mom was a great cook, but I gotta be honest. Like in that time frame, easy meals and easy cooking type stuff was all too popular, and just not. I think that it wasn't as known that a lot of the processed things that we're seeing in through the commercials on TV were as bad for you as we now know. So no judgment on anybody that raised me, family or grandmother or anything like that, but I think I grew up in a time frame that people just it seemed like there was a lot of frozen freezer food and stuff like that. Unfortunately, I'm not bragging on any of that. I wished it would have been a fully farm life where we were butchering and learning it that way. But the balance to that whole equation was the hunting and fishing. We still got to experience really what turns out to be some of the best protein that you can come across in the modern world, and we just sort of took it for granted because it was a pastime, a passion, and a food source.
Yeah, at first it's like a hobby, but then you're like, no, that's like main source.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Um, what do you think, getting into that is what do you think why is food such a foundational part of, being a modern? rural civilian.
The more that you, I guess, focus in on the important, simple things in life, treating your, and I'm 46 years old now. I'm not a spring chicken. I'm very active and capable, but there comes a point in your life when you start to um, sort of see the other end of the spectrum, like where you're burning the candle at both ends if you're not trying to do better all the time. So with with the homesteading aspect of things, and even prior to the homesteading stuff, my fiance Heather, um, who I mention a lot in my content, we're best friends. We've been together for 11 going on 12 years, and she has been, I got to give her credit. She has been, even before the homestead, she has been a driving force in clean eating, um, uh, just being more conscious and aware of processed ingredients. And I I was always I've always been passionate towards cooking food and food preparation, and I've part of my history was I kind of got I got wrapped up working in the restaurant industry when I lived sort of like in some of the more urban environments throughout the country, and I had some neat opportunities to work for really high end, like steakhouses and things like that in big cities, and um, so I learned to prepare food, like on a next level sort of arena or stage, and I always gravitated towards extravagant. I love to cook in general, but I love to cook for my loved ones. I mean, I sort of am probably not that rare, but I'll be honest and say that I may cook a nicer meal for a guest than I would just for myself if it's just only me, right? Like I enjoy what breaking bread together and preparing food together brings to the table for just humans interaction in general. And so I've always been like used cooking as a creative outlet, and really put a lot of effort into ingredients and um just every aspect of food. Even presentation, as goofy as that might sound, but I I've always considered myself a foodie in that regard, but it wasn't until, this last decade or more that I began to recognize, like, some of the drawbacks of some of the more common ingredients that you might find. I mean, I was always using high quality ingredients, but, when you look at food from a clean eating perspective, then you definitely might shift a little bit of what your ingredients list looks like, or what your, overall, meal might consist of. So, now I'm kinda combining both, um, a pretty pretty cool, amateur culinary background into more of, like, now growing our own food, um, still carrying on that hunting and fishing tradition, normally, and just trying to take that culmination of all those things to the next level with healthy, clean eating, and sort of avoiding avoiding some of the things that we now know are not the best for us, right?
Yeah, I mean, I know a bit of your background, of course, with Knife Horse and getting into, Airstreams and stuff, but I had no idea that you cooked in the restaurants. Can you touch on a little bit of your culinary career?
Yeah, well, and I should rewind, I guess. Hopefully I didn't misguide you. One of the coolest opportunity a lot of the restaurants were just small town fine dining, establishments but one of the cooler things that's really stuck with me is, when I wanted my city life experience or city life chapter, I moved to, uh, as like, first of all, the outskirts of Portland, Oregon, and then, after that, moved literally to the most downtown district of Portland, Oregon, as you can possibly imagine. And this was back in roughly 2001. A lot's changed in that area of the country since then, and I'm blessed to have experienced a completely different uh, cityscape of what Portland meant to me. But lots of high end restaurants in the downtown district, and I got a chance to work for Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, which it's got a at that time it had a pretty tremendous reputation. There was other competitors within the city that were comparable. And to rewind so that I don't take credit where credit's not due, I had cooked in a lot of restaurants prior to that, but uh, in this chapter, I really started working front of the house for the tips. So I was exposed to all of the cooking techniques and ingredients and all the food that we got blessed to eat on a daily basis that was coming out of the kitchen, but I wasn't actually cooking in that like pinnacle of my restaurant experience. It was more so like I got to take mental notes and ask questions, and I already had a good feel for cooking techniques prior to that, so I really just got to yeah, just sort of steal all the trade secrets of what I was surrounded by and bring those into my personal life.
Yeah. Crab cakes, perhaps?
Yeah, man, I still excuse me, still reproduce the those lump crab cakes on a pretty regular basis, man. Those, it sounds like you've had them, and they are yeah, I unbelievable. Just lump claw meat for the most part. Some uh panko type breadcrumbs, and little mayo. Not a lot of filler compared to most crab cakes that you find even in. I'm always sort of like testing out the crab cakes in different places that I go, and nothing seemed to compare to like the chunky claw meat that we built there. So
Yeah, I just saw you making them, and, I mean, the fact that you're
oh,
just
okay,
scooping most of the when you scoop it in to bake them off, that it's all crab, which is what
yeah,
they should be, like, other than if you're using, like, a skin or something. I used to work at a fast restaurant, and he would do, like, almost like a lumpia or like a just a real phyllo skin
oh
around it,
yeah,
but
yep,
it was all crab on the inside, and used to make a curry one, and it was pretty good. But
yeah.
yeah, I love that.
That's cool. That was really just that basically sort of the best recreation of what I learned. Specifically, that was a menu item at that restaurant, so that's a good example of sort of taking with you what you can learn from different walks of life and incorporating them into your daily life and future chapters down the road. So
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely taken, like, especially something that you have to make multiple times or you make a lot of a bunch of times, it sticks in your head. Like, I still have the Caesar dressing recipe from Coletto's
yeah,
downtown San Francisco. They had me make 5 gallons of it, so I'm like, "You're gonna remember what's in that bucket because you gotta make
yeah, absolutely, yeah,
the entire supply for the week or 2 weeks." So, yeah, that's awesome. Why don't you kinda touch into, people that don't know you or that are new, um how you became where you are now, and then we'll get into kind of all the different things you're doing.
yeah, sure. So you mentioned Night Force Optics. I worked in the firearms, the precision shooting sports industry for nearly a decade, up until about 2017. And just at the latter end of that chapter of life, I was kind of, I'll be honest, I was kind of late to the dance with social media. And I've always kind of been the holdout for technology for the most part in a lot of ways. But in about, I would say 2015 or so, um, discovered this personality online who was sharing his views on social media and what what the future of content looked like, what, the weight that it may carry down the road. And that dude's name is Gary V, or Gary Vaynerchuk. Um, I don't follow so closely anymore, but at that stage of life, he was saying some things that really resonated with me about how you could turn like your niche passions into a potential career, through the use of social media. And so I really started to pay attention there, the final years that I worked for Night Force Optics, to social media. I began to share, sort of like, in a nutshell, document my journey. My journey's changed a lot over the years since then, but at that time, I've always had crazy ideas. I've been passionate about my life and my identity being in alignment with one another. And it's not always easy to make a living when that's the case. So a lot of the artistic or creative endeavors I've sort of struggled to figure out how to, for no less words, monetize that and sort of break away from the crowd and do my own thing. So um when I started to hear these tips and theories about what social media is and was and is going to be in the future, I really honed in. And I left Night Force in 2017 to uh, pursue my own creative endeavors, and that first one looked like I love to restore stuff. I love to bring old things back to life. I love Made in America, everything Americana in general. I think, as we all know, that's becoming more rare. But back in the 70s and 60s, it wasn't so special. It was normal.
Right.
So uh, I had a personal passion for vintage Airstreams, vintage Airstream travel trailers, which are they have sort of a cult following. And I dove in headfirst thinking I'm gonna start a vintage Airstream restoration business, and I'm gonna, bring these things back to life and rehome them. And this will be my new creative passion business. Um, I did that was my next. So from 2017 to about 2021, that was my main focus, was vintage Airstream related restoration and rehoming. I documented all of that through social media. Um, there was a lot of traveling across the country. I sort of describe it to people like, I thought I was going to just be working hands on with these Airstreams. And what it turned out to be is that I developed a bunch of clients slash friends in Southern California that needed project Airstreams. They already had established restoration shops with long lists of clients that wanted trailers built for them. But because the more populated areas have always been sort of ahead of the curve with trends in across the country, very hard to find an old Airstream sitting out in the field in Southern California. Like, that was a thing of the past already at that time frame. So um,
Right.
my restoration goal turned into, or my restoration um, focus turned into, wow, you're able to just go find these things. I had like sort of a knack for picking the right country road, picking the right back road, and discovering these things sort of wasting away out in the middle of nowhere. And I enjoy people, I enjoy communicating, and I've never been scared of walking up to a scary property and sort of trying my best to show my passion for what it is that they had sitting out in their field and make a fair deal. And then a lot of that lifestyle turned into, I included my delivery fees with the sale of the trailer to these restoration shops, mostly in Southern California. And I could have made a lot more money, but I used it as a, as a excuse to see the country. So I would sort of pretty directly back roads it down to where I needed to drop the trailer off, and then from there would take my sweet time picking a brand new route, exploring either the southwest corner of the country or um, probably turn what could have been a 3-day return road trip into a 3-week return road trip, living out of the back of my old 60s Ford, which I had converted the canopy into a little living space, cooking on propane stoves out in the middle of the beautiful Sedona looking desert. Just what a neat chapter. Like I said, I could have probably made a better living, but I really sort of used it as an opportunity to experience freedom to like the fullest potential that I could envision, and live pretty simply, but that's where I got my first taste of being completely self-sufficient. Like I set that truck up to have almost every luxury that I could hope for contained within my vehicle. Um, 12-volt refrigerator, a little heater if I was in a cold climate, just all the things that scaled down that would keep you comfortable at home, to be able to just explore without any real destination in mind. And that feeling of being like, if I broke down tomorrow, I would be fine for the next week or 2 weeks. Just there's no the insurance policy, like mental insurance policy, that whole chapter of life brought to the table really turned me on to the thought of becoming more self-sufficient in general with every new chapter of life. I did that Airstream stuff up until 2021. 2020 was when 2021 was kind of we were in the peak of COVID at that point, and even our rural corner of the country here in Idaho we were experiencing some, like, I think everybody was experiencing supply chain issues, but we were experiencing a little bit of what I would say, like, overreach, like public lands being sort of try like government entities trying to shut down public lands and things like this, like places where there were no people, places where there were that you would just get your therapy from. And so I think that was a weird time for all of us, but for Heather and I, that was like sort of we always had dreams of living in the country and not having neighbors was our main kind of our main general dream. And then when all of those different issues affected our daily life during the worst of COVID, that's when we for one, she recognized that we could sell our pretty nice, way too big a home that we didn't need in town, and it was now worth more than it had ever been worth, and we were able to sort of envision buying property with cash and starting a brand new chapter of life, and we were still young and dumb enough to to take that leap, and that led us to finding this property here um, in the summer of 2021. There was nothing here. There was a water source and there was a power pole, but other than that, there was nothing on the property. There was no structures. It was just an overgrown jungle of a mountainside. It's just about 14 acres is what we bought. When we pulled up here, the it was a mad dash. We had a full 2,700 square foot home full of all of our just
Stuff.
belongings,
Yeah.
yeah, stuff that normal folks would have. And so just to make this all possible, we really had to like pretty much sell everything just because we didn't want to store everything and we had no place to put it on the new property.
Right.
So for that real estate market was so crazy, our house sold in 4 days. We knew that it was going to be, like a very immediate transition once we decided to put it on the market. But it was a crazy little few months of trying to get prepared to list it, knowing that it was going to be gone as soon as we listed it, and knowing that we needed to basically be ready to show up on bare land with not much to live, not much means to live there. So I'll never forget like we had the keys to our old place until midnight, of the last day, and we were there till like literally 12:05. We had bought an old 70s motorhome from a family member, and like it was almost literally like the Beverly Hillbillies. I mean, we locked the house for the last time, loaded up the last couple of animals in the motorhome, and uh, drove off into the night to go pull up on this property. Park and go to sleep, and the next day life was, gosh, I want to say 180 degrees different, but I can't. That doesn't even do justice to the life change that whole decision making process brought to the table. We woke up the next day with weed whackers in hand and just started to try to clear an area that we were parked, just to sort of have any place to exist on, and we'd been out to the property numerous visits before, like it was within close range of, only an hour from our last home. So it wasn't one of these scenarios where we're trying to like pick a property on the internet and move cross country not having ever saw it. We had been out here and hiked the property numerous times. We'd fallen in love with it, and we came and watched sunsets out here. We definitely knew what we were getting into, but nothing sort of compares to just like rolling up in a motorhome and realizing that you no longer have the home that you've been living in. So uh,
Yeah. And
cool
to kind
experience,
of
man.
reference what we're gonna get into, your root cellar is, you have your own little shire there.
Yeah, yeah. So
You know?
yeah, lots of from the time that we landed here, some of the first moves that we made were really just sort of trying to we tried to approach it from sort of a logical standpoint of, we're on the side of a steep sloping mountain. We don't have a lot of flat ground. I have back to my logging heritage and roots with my family and my small town. We have my dad at the time had an old 1960s bulldozer, um, and some family with the ability to truck it up here. We really started that first year with like selectively clearing what I would call kind of a jungle at that time, just overgrown with trees and with brush and with you really sort of some of the visuals that I'm able to share through the channel these days, you wouldn't even recognize the place from when we first rolled in. Um, but we spent that first, I would say, year with heavy equipment trying to reshape the land, which big big shout out to my dad and the people that contributed to that help, because that was just immeasurable work that you could I can't even imagine if you were a homesteader in the 1920s compared to the 2020s, because to do any of that sort of reshaping of the land in 100 or 120 years ago without, modern equipment being so available. What a job, like so much respect for those old timers. But reshaped the land, sort of got created kind of a clean slate or a clean canvas of what we had to work with. Um, Started building the mountain spring based water system. Everything takes 3 times, 4 times longer than my overly optimistic brain will allow me to believe. I set out to accomplish projects and think that they're gonna sort of assign a time frame to them in my head, and uh, constantly putting my foot in my mouth about how much I can get done in the given time frame when you're doing it all on your own. Uh, but pretty much after we reshaped the land, our main focus was get a garden space up and running. Um, be able to produce food. And with that came, the old fashioned thought of a root cellar. Every project that I've sunken my heart into here on this property has been sort of evaluated as this is the most modern way to accomplish a version of this. How did they do it 120 years ago? Like when you're starting from the ground up, at least for me, I didn't want to put all of our eggs in one basket, whereas we would have everything electric and dependent on all these things that we had seen stumble so quick, so recently ago with COVID. Um, whether it be so basically all the projects that I've done, um, they might have an avenue where they can function with power on a modern scale, but they also are designed to have like this fallback of being capable of doing their job without any real modern amenities. So I build a lot of off-grid projects, but I've sort of tried to educate people to more of what I call a switch grid mentality, where you've got the ability. A lot of people don't want to take that full dive and be completely without power, um, only reliant on batteries and solar or renewable energy in that way. A lot of people can quite easily swallow the thought and want to of supplementing what they already know with an off-grid backup alternative, and um, that's kind of in a nutshell where modern rural civilian comes from. The modern portion of this is like my my draw towards modern materials and modern um, technologies, but how can we how can we take what we know now, apply it to a formula that was created in 1910, and create something that is even more capable than what our um, generations before us were able to do with not much. So uh, yeah, that's kind of. But the root cellar was just a repurposed. It was kind of an opportunistic project. We had a giant, like a 5 foot diameter culvert water pipe that had been buried in the ground here on the property below a water source, and it was used years ago as some sort of a water cistern. Um, since then, it wasn't functioning. It was really just like this deep pit of danger that our animals something could fall into. So uh, I got the idea that we would dig it up and sort of turn it into sort of a cave style root cellar in the side of one of the steep slopes, like I'm trying my best to not soak up all the little bit of flat land that we have with structures. So the more that I can build into the hillside and build into the side of the mountain, the less it sort of takes the little bit that we have to as far as flat ground is concerned. So um, yeah, dug that old water pipe up. My dad and I, this was a cool project for him and I to work together on, but he and I dug it up. We dug a giant sort of hole in the side of the mountain and placed that thing into the earth and then built the earth back up around it as though as though there was never a hole dug there. I got to show the
Super
whole
cool.
world. Yeah, yeah, I got to show the whole world the process of building it, and as much as, all these projects are just, nothing's for content, I guess, is the point I'm trying to make. Like, these are all necessities in my mind for us to operate smoothly but it's been so cool to see the world, um, learn so much and be be so, drawn to, some of these projects that just make automatic sense for Heather and I. So, the root cellar.
Yeah, I mean, it, like, helps someone else that's trying to do the same thing or has got a
Yeah.
similar situation. Um, yeah, I mean, how has your relationship with food changed, since moving out to being on your own? And I know you oftentimes refer to treating it as medicine sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, so, we're still as 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 much as maybe I don't give ourselves as much credit as we've, uh, as we've sort of learned and, um, earned through trial and error, we're still always learning, um, gardening, food production in general it's different every year. I mean, I've always had sort of a green thumb and enjoyed growing small, what do you call it? Like above ground type gardens. Like we had a really aesthetically pretty garden made out of like galvanized water troughs back in at our last house in town, and um, I love every aspect of making things beautiful and creating growing food, but we've never tried to do it on a more large scale like what we're trying to do now. One thing that I've learned is just that the seasons vary enough that it's challenging. Like, you think that you have the lesson learned from last year, but now nature throws you a curveball, and what grew so well last year is not doing well this year with the same techniques employed. Um, the biggest part of the changes for us with food being out here on the property now is, we love the full circle aspect of, like, there's there's no words that can describe gr the fulfillment that comes from creating that same extravagant five-star meal, that from the best ingredients that you got at the food co-op that are, maybe local and organic, but now substitute all that with something that you grew yourself in your own garden, and I don't know what it is about it, but I think it's just the all the right things for all the right reasons as far as, like, the circle of life goes, but the enjoyment and what you feel as nourishment come out of that meal that's now being built with things that you produced yourself is even, it's probably like threefold of the best ingredients out of the store. So there's just like this extra satisfaction and fulfillment that comes from uh producing your own food. And with that, it sort of feeds the fire to want to produce more and to produce more varied foods. And so it just kind of like everything's that snowball effect out here. You get a taste of something and you realize how that feels meant to be and how that feels probably like it should in the grand scheme of humans in this lifetime, and you begin to want to expand on that even more. So um really just, and the other aspect of that is that our property just, I can only speak from our experience, but this property, it has so many medicinal natural plants growing wildly here on the land that I probably grew up, um like, I've seen that plant before, but Heather brings this whole other passion for herbal medicine and wild natural herbs and plant medicine to the table that's her area of expertise. So I've learned and become passionate through osmosis from her, um, teaching me and pointing out all of these different, naturally occurring plants and herbs on our land, and a lot of those are edible. A lot of them are more medicinal than they are edible, but depending on whether we make a lot of herbal teas, medicinal herbal teas out of those plants. So I guess there's kind of a blurry line even there for these plants that are more medicinal, because you can always consume that plant through a tea. We do make a lot of balms and salves and things like that. So do like oil extractions from the plants into an oil for 8, 10, 12 weeks at a time, and then use that to make different topical solutions that you can utilize on yourself. But all of this whole experience of being out here and being hands in the dirt on the land constantly, trying to build this property up in a pretty ethical way, like as far as our philosophy is concerned, has just brought us closer to everything natural. And so food and garden, like we've got a we joke that Heather has become the seed hoarder. She as much as some people just order and hoard uh, different things that they're not using right now, like seeds has become one of her uh, closet hoarding passions. So she's always she's always studying new foods that we can grow from heirloom seed. Heirloom seed and heirloom plants being a variety of plant that will produce seed that you can replant yourself the following year. So a lot of the plants that you might find at the hardware store or something like that, they've been treated in a way that or um, propagated in a way that don't allow them to necessarily be the best thing that you would want to harvest seeds from and then replant the following year. So we definitely we focus on things that we can keep going and look back on a decade later as the same genetics that we started with. So yeah,
Awesome.
just closer to the land. Our whole land is covered with wild blackberries, which is good and bad. They're kind of an out of control briar patch. Often we have goats that sort of do their job to keep them in check, but um, this property was bare when we found it, but it does have signs of having been a homestead, years, maybe who knows, century ago. There's a lot of um, there's a variety of trees here on the property that would not be, that somebody planted at some point in history. Black walnut, English walnut, um, pear trees, lots of apple trees, lots of wild plums. So even without us, trying to expand every year and continue to put effort into nurturing things that produce more food for us later down the road, there's still a very strong um, presence of things that produce food just that have been established for decades here on the land. So that's a blessing.
Yeah, that's really cool. And you're probably like just exploring the property and stuff is just kind of revealing itself, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's still surreal, like I think I've gotten tunnel vision with all the work that still needs to happen for us to be sort of back
Sure.
into um a nice forever home and more of a modern comfortable existence. But it's still surreal to think that we own this outright, that we bought this we've made sacrifices to buy this with cash, and we own it. You know we have the ability to pretty much do whatever we want here on the property, and we definitely treat it like a blank canvas of a piece of fine art. I think one of the pushes that I see in the sort of the, I'm gonna say, modern homesteading genre, modern just being what people are doing here in present day, is this okayness with just building a fully functional homestead that doesn't necessarily have an aesthetic touch to it, like, uh and I'm not absolutely not judging anybody, but I have just these creative vision dreams of what I want things to look like, and I'm doing my absolute best to build the homestead that you might think is is an AI picture, or an AI diagram on social media. And I'm not using AI as my uh inspiration at all. I'm just trying to paint a visual picture for people. Like
Right.
it's taking me much longer to do this, but I want it to be a Shangri-La when it's finished. I want it to be something that functions, but yet is like a place that we don't want or need a vacation from, in the sense that uh, we love what we see everywhere we go. So it's challenging, but it's gratifying.
I mean, what I see, and I'm sure what everyone else sees, everyone that's following you is like when you take on a project, you're very meticulous about it. You don't rush into it. You plan it all out, and then backwards and forwards, and then yes, you run into your challenges, but you kind of understand that that's going to happen. But like the end product is, um, it's well finished, and yeah, it looks awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate that compliment. I try my best to to build all this stuff with the utmost research in mind. Research is free. I've done some content on this. Research is free. We live in the information era. It's never been an easier time in history to do something you've never that you don't know anything about. We can all go to our phones and begin to Google and research a topic or a niche that we've never even scratched the surface of. And if you're, I think this is just one of my gifts, but I just really get obsessive enjoyment out of researching prior to, um, or maybe even at every stage of a project. Just trying to do it, as there's always going to be like the professional that does this as a living in particular, and if you can find that person online and figure out the standards of their industry, um, as a DIYer, you can duplicate very high quality work, on your own, if you just pay attention to detail, and if that's your goal. A lot of people are cool with making barns out of pallet, just like, or fences out of pallets, and that's like I said, I'm not judging any of that functionality part of the modern homestead stuff, but that's just where where my my personal passion separates from what I see online a lot is where I'm just trying to do this. I just want it to be this oasis that we get to rock in the rocking chairs later in life, and can't believe that we did this all with our own two hands.
Yeah. I gotta ask, like, there's a couple of hard, like, some questions. Is do you think people still understand where their food comes from?
I do not. No, no. I think that it's becoming more common for people to be questioning where their food comes from at this stage of the game, but I don't think that in general, especially the kids these I mean the kids the uh I'm dating myself there, but like I've got a 14-year-old daughter, and I probably was no different, and but I just don't think people either I don't think they take the time to question their food sources or their food. Like there's so much nonsense in the food world that has become the norm for us as Americans, that I think that people just assume that's that doesn't, that doesn't kill you right away, so that's not bad for you. I think that it's like everybody eats that, that bag of Doritos. Everybody does this um canola oil, you know what I mean? Like, but I do think that there's a movement towards, and my channel is evidence of that, because this all sort of melts into the same pot, whether it be sources of food, or eating clean, or growing your own food, butchering your own food. There's a big draw to that, but I fear that in the bigger picture of all the people that I don't see viewing my content, that there's still a naivete to like what they're consuming and what they're putting in their body. I hope that I hope that it picks up steam and keeps marching down a more healthy path, and I think that it is under a microscope, but I hope that becomes more widespread.
Yeah, 100%. What food skills do you think everyone should have if they're going to homestead or they're not a homesteader? What do you think everybody should have?
Couple things. I think that cooking with like I grew up in the like in the woods, like a lot of camping, and a lot of I think that it sort of sparks a fire for the general public to learn how to cook with minimal fancy, um like if you can cook by fire, like literally cook meals out at a fire that you built, or a fire pit that you own. I think those are good building blocks for understanding that you don't need this food processor, and this, like, I love all the fancy tools in the kitchen as well, and I don't have a fancy kitchen anymore, so I'm a little envious, but I think, like, learning what you can do with things that are not so dependent on your surroundings, in the culinary experience, I think would be a good lesson for everybody to learn. Um, I also believe that grow something, like even if it's just a window herb garden. Grow, if you've never grown anything, and I would dare to say there's lots of people out there in the United States who've just never even watered a food plant in their life, and um, each to their own. But I think that the experience of starting small and beginning to see what that feels like, and watch something grow, and if you grow it all the way to the point of fruition where you're able to consume that on your dinner plate, I think that sort of once again sparks a fire that you can't really put out later in life. It only grows from there. So um one of the other things that I would comment on when it comes to like if I could gently and or um, inspiringly push people in a direction, get involved with where your food comes from, even if it's like we've had the really neat experience to go like over the last few falls. We've had the neat experience to go and join a neighboring farm who raises farm raises turkeys, and then we have been invited to help with the butchering and processing of those turkeys. So it wasn't. It's not like an investment in us having the space, the money, and the time to raise the birds, but you get to, for one, you get to be a helping hand for somebody that has a pretty, a decently large amount of work to accomplish in a single day. Um, but you also get to the community feel for what happens on a day like that when it's 10 or 12 people, including some of the children from the folks who have joined the work party. Um, I can't describe to you how incredible it is to watch young people, like kids, be involved in that process and not begin to sort of let that soak into their psyche, in such a good way. Like some of my, I've had great, numerous different topics of content that have been, just so well received by the public. But some of the most recent, when I'm talking about this butchering of animals yourself and processing the animal yourself, um, comes from documenting these farm days when we, as a local little rural community, group together to process and harvest these farm raised animals, and then everybody picks out a turkey at the end of the day, and you wind up cooking and consuming what you had your hands on throughout that entire process. And I've always tried to I've always tried to bring people into the fold to understand how gratifying that feels, like how much more you appreciate that animal when you realize that you harvested it, and you like there's a huge part of bit of respect with it. It's not just like, "Well, I know for sure where this came from and it wasn't treated badly." It's more like I was part of this animal's cycle of life, and now it's going to nourish me and my family. And so I've been really shocked at the appreciation from the public for some of those pieces of content to show them the process. And I just wanted to share with your audience that there's opportunities out there where you don't necessarily have to have the land and or the space and the commitment to have raised those animals yourself to get your feet wet. You could join a little homesteading group on Facebook and probably find a farm that would be happy to show you their ways and teach you how they process those animals in exchange for extra help to get the job done on the day that they're doing the work.
Yeah, for
So
sure. And there's like even also like with, you know, when you look through your community, you can find the small farms that are producing just produce. You know, they have those like monthly boxes where you can be a part of. You pay a month fee and you get their general seasonal box, which helps every farm in the area keep growing
yes,
besides going to the farmers markets. And then like I've interviewed a few farmers that raise cattle or other livestock. And so, like, they offer farm tours for the most part to come see their operation. You may not see the butchering process, but at least you're going to see them where they're grown and how
yes,
they're doing their best to like Semple Creek and Tamales is a fully regenerative farm. So like they
yep,
just regenerating everything on the farm. And then I've interviewed Greg at Little Belt Cattle here in Montana with a full beef operation. So it's like seeing the care that comes into day or night, freezing, not freezing,
hmm
weather. doesn't matter. They're doing it regardless of the time or day, like, so it's good to hear, like, if people need to hear how much work it
Mm.
goes into, right? Like, I
Oh,
think,
absolutely.
you know, by the time it gets on your plate with the chef also cooking, or, you home cooking it, like that, all that work goes into play too. But like the full circle moment, and yeah, it's a good understanding people need to see and feel.
Yeah, it's super inspiring. Like if you take the steps to be involved in something like that, no matter the level that you get involved. Um, Once again, all I have to try my best to tell people that the more that you experience in any of these ways of life, and I'm just going to summarize it as imagining uh, what life looked like 120 years ago, the more that you can dabble in what the more simple those were that was just everyday regular life back then. Like you literally would go out and grab a chicken and harvest it and cook it. I mean, that was common even in my dad's childhood. So, um, but those things have grown so far apart from the modern conveniences that we know as normal everyday life right now that the more that you can dabble in any of those sort of 100-year-old ways, the more they will show you this happiness and this joy and this gratification and inspiration for what it was that you just did and felt and how right it felt. um, that I can't help but think that it won't just push people in that direction, but I think that we've kind of put blinders on to where we're not just exposed to that opportunity at all, so the thought never crosses our mind that there's a different and more wholesome, natural, and normal way of feeling and participating in all this.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, I look at it as like, you get to go back to the ways of where everyone had their specialty. Yeah,
Yeah,
milk used to be delivered to your door in a glass bottle with a little cap on it or whatever.
right,
And so, like, that's where you got your milk, and then you had your butcher. You went to the butcher and watched him cut whatever you were gonna get, and you'd ask for a specific cut, and you'd go to
right.
your farmer to get your produce. So it's like you have your specialty stuff, and yeah, the farmers markets are getting much better and educating everybody on what's in season and what to get and where you can get it. And yeah, and it just helps to have someone else, just putting that out there. What lessons do you think has growing your own food taught you that buying it would never
Oh,
give?
the first thing that comes to mind is just the level of appreciation for for the finished product. Like there's so many things that can go wrong in between planting the seed and harvesting late summer or early fall to then uh, be able to utilize that food on your plate. And when all the things fall into alignment the right way and you're actually able to produce a good harvest of whatever that vegetable is, you just I just feel like you're so much more grateful and so much more loving of consuming that food. Uh, yeah, just the simple fact of how not easy it is to go from the garden to the plate, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think the appreciation is unmatched when you when you take that route, but also when you succeed at that route.
I grew up, a lot of fishing, not a ton of hunting, especially being
Yeah.
in kind of the big city, but there were
Yep.
still plenty of hunters, just wasn't around them. And obviously now I'm in a state where that's the other way around, where the
Yeah. Yeah.
average person is a hunter. And
Yep.
so looking forward to getting into that. But how do you approach the hunting and raising animals for food? What's your approach
Yeah,
like?
yeah. Um, so I grew up with hunting being sort of a good memory maker for my dad and myself. Like those are literally some of the best memories. So I don't. It was always kind of like an evenly sliced pie of the benefits that hunting brought to our family, whether it was going to be the food at the end of the day, the the adventure with your loved ones, the uh, being out in nature, like for extended periods of time, that always brings a healthy smile to any human's face, whether they realize it or not. So there wasn't really one. When I look back, I think of it as being sort of an evenly um, sliced up pie of what the reasoning behind us hunting was. Um, but now I sort of approach hunting on more of a hunting and fishing in general. I'm not I'm not a fisherman to fish, uh, I guess I enjoy fishing, but so we live only about 20 minutes from the Clearwater River, which is happens to be one of the like considered the steelhead capital of maybe the world. I'm probably going to screw that up, but at least the steelhead capital of the United States. Um, right now, there's the steelhead run is happening, and um, I'm not addicted to the act of fishing at this stage of my life. I'm definitely there to try to catch something and bring it home and stock the freezer. So, um, a little bit of my and maybe that has to do with time. I'm sort of stretched thin with trying to make progress on the property, and I don't have as much leisurely free time as I did when I was growing up, with just less or a lack of responsibilities. But hunting, uh, kind of the same thing, but hunting can be a lot of work. Like just the act of hunting is the fun part, but when you finally harvest an animal is depending on how far out into the woods or the backcountry or what type of a hunt you've chosen to create for yourself. That is kind of when the real work starts, is when you've actually um, decided to take an animal and been successful at that. And so um, I can't wait to get more time to be back in the woods hunting regularly. But for now, um, it's more of a meat hunt for me. I'm definitely not
Yeah.
looking for any sort of a trophy animal or trying to. If I'm going to prolong the hunt, it's just to prolong the experience of being out in nature. That's a super satisfying part of hunting that I think all hunters would say that, but it's all about appreciating and being closer to the land. The harvesting an animal is always just like the side note to a lifestyle of being closer to nature and closer to the natural world in general. Um, but nowadays, I sort of take a lot of what I grew up learning and hunting for granted. So I find that I'm asked a lot these days, maybe through the online community, questions from people that are just getting into hunting for the first time or just interested in hunting for the first time. And I'm very grateful for the fact that I have no hesitation to go out in the middle of nowhere and harvest a wild game animal and not know what to do with it. Like processing and or um, uh, um, field dressing. Any all of that is such an early life lesson in my upbringing that I didn't realize how much I took that for granted until I'm now being asked by 20, 30, and 40-year-olds, "Oh, how what what would you do in in this situation, or how do I start, or where do I go, or what do I do? It all comes back to you. This is all stuff that we did, our ancestors did as a norm. I think that there's some genetic knowledge within all of us that you take the leap and get your feet wet with trying to uh, wind back the hands of time, and time will meet you halfway, and it's not near as it doesn't it's not it turns out it's not near as intimidating as I think people um, inexperienced might respectfully, you know, be hesitant because they feel like they don't know enough.
Yeah.
Um,
I think like a lot of hunters say is like you get out in the woods a little quieter, your senses get better for whatever reason. All of
yeah,
a sudden
yeah,
you can see a little clearer, you can hear a little better. And the more you do that, it just gets more in tune to what you need to get done.
yeah. The natural world, that's 100% accurate. You take a child hunting or something, and there's really no um in that child's mind, there's no instant instinct to sort of be quiet, step quietly, walk quietly, not talk, whisper when needed. But the longer that you stay out there, the longer that you um, do your best to learn how this all works, the more that your senses come into atonement with the natural world, and for sure, I think those are probably more therapeutic and healthy than even myself or anybody very highly educated in that realm actually realize. I
Mhm.
think that uh, if you're putting yourself in a position where you're becoming more in tune with nature uh, through immersing yourself in it, then probably there is. Yeah, I don't even think you could compare that to trying to talk your way through your stresses in life.
Yeah. And also in your backyard, I've interviewed Derek Wilson at Crosso Meats. He's in Pollock, Idaho.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, very
So,
cool.
I'll have to connect
Um,
you guys, and he's a hunter as well right there in Hell's Canyon. So,
yeah, yeah, uh, my aunt my aunt was, graduated in or went to school in Pollock, grew up in Pollock, what a tiny little town. I mean,
mhm,
I don't even know if they
yeah,
have 1,000 or
it's like
1,000
a blip.
residents.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's beautiful down there.
Mhm.
It's some very steep country. So if you're hunting in that region of Idaho, just a little ways south of us, you you've definitely your body's grateful for the exercise that it gets.
Yeah, 100%. Getting into like some preservation, like what's you got the root cellar in your little shire, the hobbit cellar.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, what's the easiest barrier entry for, preserving food that that you started to do and looks like you're
Yeah,
starting
yeah.
to get more and more involved?
I think I think canning is something that everybody should. I'm not going to tell people what to start with, but I think the barrier for entry is very low when it comes to canning your garden harvests. And even if you just want to, you don't even, once again, you can approach all these subjects from a position of I'm not quite there yet. I don't have the acreage and or the garden, but I really want to learn this lifestyle before I'm like before I've fully committed. Go to the farmer's market and get yourself a box, a case of something that you really enjoy. Maybe like we can peaches all the time, and we get them from a local peach farm here close by. So um canning, I think, is there's so much information out there online. It's such a it was such it's it was such a normal thing in the history of our country, and even the folks who weren't as advanced in food preservation, canning, it seems like sort of the beginning steps of marching down that path. So I would say canning, and then with that, like, we do a lot of pressure canning, where you're versus water bath canning. Water bath canning is just hot water in no, just hot water with a lid and bringing it up to temperature. But pressure canning, of course, um, is a sealed container that is brought up to pressure, and it actually, um, uh, kills harmful bacteria and things like that. Like the things that you pressure can, you wouldn't be able to safely water bath can. So um, we we love to do both. We do a lot of water bath canning, but we also have a couple of you know old. I'm trying to remember the name for you. All American is the manufacturer of the pressure canners that we have. They're like these giant, big, thick, solid aluminum pressure canners that you. So if any of your audience is new to pressure canning, search Facebook Marketplace for All American pressure canners. They're still made today in the exact same fashion that they were made 100 years ago, and they don't seem to wear out ever. So I scoop them up whenever I whenever I find a good deal on them, just to try to uh, have extra capacity when we're ready to process and preserve something. Um, Beyond that, we use a um, traditional layer cake food dehydrator a lot for preserving uh, plants for teas, herbs and medicinal plants. Uh, we sort of coming from Heather's experience and knowledge, she unhooks the heating element from the dehydrator so that it's just literally circulating room temperature air. Um, Heat can sort of diminish the medicinal value of certain foods and certain herbs, or medicinal herbs. So the less heat that you can apply, sometimes the more of the good medicine that you're preserving within the food or within the herb. So uh, canning, dehydrating. Uh, I have visions of. I'm going to build a smokehouse at some point. Like I love to smoke meat, but right now I just traditionally smoke on like a Weber, style grill that I sort of have come up with a technique that works really good for smoking meat that we usually eat it all, within within a few days. So I'm not smoking that meat to preserve it for long
Right.
time storage or long term storage. But um, I'm very interested in uh, what you see like indigenous groups in Alaska and stuff like that, like
Right.
smokehouses and smoking fish for long term storage.
Semi-cold
Um,
smoke, kind of.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep. Um, so that is a future project and future avenue of food preservation that I want to that I have full intentions of exploring further. Um, I'm looking right now at our um freeze dryer. We also utilize your common harvest right freeze dryer that you see, much more common than I see them at the local farm store now. Even at Costco, I see them. But uh, that is a more sort of more of an advanced way of long-term food storage and more involved. But there's a lot of processing that seems to go into the preparation of the food that you're going to be freeze drying. But the research is pretty incredible on the longevity of freeze dried stored foods. So we're still learning in that realm of freeze drying. We're not experts in the freeze drying world, but we do have one, and we do use that also. So um,
You gonna get into any fermentation as well?
oh yeah, yeah. I started to just brainstorm there and make sure I'm not missing anything, but we absolutely do.
Yeah.
Um, we we love to make our own. We use apple cider vinegar a lot, and we we begin to make our own apple cider vinegar, which is pretty incredible, pretty simple but pretty incredible. Um, we Heather's got a couple of big things of sauerkraut that she just fermented and made, over the last month or two. We don't we're kind of limited on the space that we have with our current shelters, so to speak.
Yeah.
Uh, we both live in, we each have a vintage RV that we call home right now while we still build out the property, and so you're talking like the tiniest kitchen that you could ever imagine in either of these two spaces. We do a lot of outdoor cooking and outdoor food processing whenever the weather's inviting. But I guess the point to that is that all of these methods of food preservation will become much larger scale when we have the space to be able to do it. Like fermentation is, and I got to give credit where credit's due. There, Heather is huge on just all the flavor palette that fermentation brings to the table. Like
Yeah.
she's an yeah, I'm at a loss for the word, the descriptive word but those are some of her favorite flavors in life, are some of the, the bite that fermentation, offers, and so I'm, I'm trying to think of any other.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah,
covering
yeah,
quite a bit there.
yeah, I mean, that's
Um,
kind of every aspect of
and you've kinda
food
touched
preservation.
on all the different stuff that you guys are kinda growing and pickling and preserving. What is your go-to meal? What's in the rotation for Mark and Heather pretty much, monthly? You're like, "This is a go-to meal for us."
Yeah, um, so we once again, it kinda just, it sort of trails back to what was how was the gardening season good to us last year, and what do we have a surplus of? Um, this last year, it seems to it's like I can't say enough how humbling the gardening experience is based on factors that are sort of beyond your control. Last year last year we had like a bumper crop of beans. So like we grew this purple sort of bush bean that like a traditional green bean, but we have just we had such a surplus of these beans that flash froze them and then froze them in the deep freeze. um so we're still, even now, incorporating these delicious hand grown beans into our dishes right now. Like I've been doing a lot of stir fries. We we get our beef from another small regenerative farm over in Montana. We don't, unfortunately, we don't have, at least yet, the fencing and or what I kind of feel like is the right. Our property is very steep, so having cattle or having a cow, a few cows to raise is seems like a little bit beyond what our situation is going to allow. So um, we still, but we've fallen victim to how incredible grass-fed, regeneratively raised and grazed beef is, and so that has sort of changed our whole outlook on ground burger. We use like high quality ground, small farm ground burger for much more than we ever did in the past. Like, traditionally it would just be something that you would say, "Oh, let's make hamburgers," but I've been making stir fries from this grass-fed beef and our homegrown green beans here quite quite recently, often. Anything that you can do to taste the summer when it comes to this mid-January blues on on the farm, the better you are. So green beans were incredible last year, so we're eating a lot of green beans throughout the winter. The summer prior to that, I gotta tip people off if maybe I was late to the dance on this particular uh, pepper, but shishito peppers. I'm not
Okay.
traditionally like I love jalapenos like a spicy sliver here and there. I like to cook with them, but shishito peppers are not a sweet pepper and they're not a spicy pepper. They have uh, uh, they have one of the most incredible flavor, just middle of the road, fantastic flavors that I've ever experienced. And from the time that I first tried them at a small little uh, tasting room, winery tasting room local to our little small town, I have been madly in love with them. I look for shishito plants at our local like nursery co-op every for the last 2 summers. Uh, so anyway, if you're new to shishito peppers, I'm trying my best to tilt the world in a shishito way because I'm just not traditionally somebody that would say what side item do you want with with your dish today, and I would have never said peppers until discovering shishitos, and now I could eat an entire cast iron skillet of shishitos all by themselves. So unbelievable pepper.
Yeah,
And
those they're yeah, they're
we had a bump.
yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
go ahead. Go
Oh,
ahead.
we just had a bumper crop. We had such a super hot, dry summer, not this past summer, but the summer prior, that we just like we're eating the purple green beans this winter, we were eating shishito peppers all winter last year just because that's what nature decided we were gonna be successful at. So, uh, yeah.
That's great. What do you think, you know, what traditional food practices deserve a comeback? I think you kinda mentioned a bunch of them already, but
Yeah, yeah. I mean, beyond the preservation side of things and all the food preservation techniques are so old that, maybe we tend to try to take credit for them in modern times, but really they've got, um, they've got roots so far beyond our existence, I mean, beyond our current generation's existence that it's hard. We shouldn't be. We're just trying. We just think we're special to try to revive those things. But I because once again I described our living situation here. Two vintage RVs that have like the tiniest little walkway slash stovetop kitchen. Um, those just that fact alone will forces us outdoors to cook so much that I think I'm such a fan of cooking over a fire pit. Like I just think that if I if I could try to spill out some of my passion for something that's a little bit different in my world than what I see even online is cooking over fire, very rudimentary cooking, whether it be a cast iron skillet on a grate that you've put over your own fire pit or just one heat source, every ingredient being cooked over that one heat source, and that one heat source just being traditional firewood, nothing special, not some sort of fancy smoking wood. I think the more that you simplify it, sometimes the more enjoyable, at least for the meal that you're consuming, it can be. I did a piece of content on this, and it only just crossed my mind when I'm talking about cooking over fire, but uh, I built a little stone oven within a rock fire pit, basically probably about a 2 or 3 inch thick flat top stone that I found here on our property, and just built two sidewalls to it, and with an open front where I could shovel, scoop coals underneath of the flat rock surface. And we've had some pretty neat steak meals, and things like that, um, really just more friends in my just experimenting with what you can do with fire, and completely found tools like that. And as good as it tastes, I think some of the enjoyment comes out of the accomplishment of creating something out of almost nothing. And I would push people to just to be bold when it comes to cooking techniques like that, because you never know the level of joy that you might experience from mixing it up like that, and trying something that you is completely new to you.
Yeah, it's fun and playing with the variables of fire too, learning how to get it going, and then learning to play with the different heat levels, and then, and then making sure your food's cooked and
Yeah,
not
yeah.
totally burnt too. So
Right,
it's
right.
it's all fun in all of that. Mindful of your time, we got a few things to go over, but your favorite friend Paul wanted me to ask you that your favorite Instagram is Stumptown Axes. And but there's something kind of technical that you've built for your property. Can and just you don't have to go crazy detail. You've gone to a lot of explanation, but can you kind of tell people about the ram pump that you've built?
Oh, absolutely, man. So once again, like, basically just working with what I found here on the property once we got here. We didn't buy this property with this grand scheme plans of, oh, we can make this sort of a off-grid, mechanical water pump work on this land. Um, I've really been blessed to be resourceful about what I find and what I can do with it in life. And in this case, um, we have constant free flowing water coming down the mountain, and we have slope, like, elevation drop. And when you combine water with elevation drop, it creates head pressure or water pressure. And the premise of a ram pump is that it uses that head pressure um, to operate a couple of mechanical check valves within the device itself. Um, and unbeknownst to me, prior to beginning to experiment and to build one of these things myself, with off the shelf plumbing parts from the Home Depot or the local plumbing store, uh, I'm using roughly 18 feet of elevation drop to feed into a mechanical device that I built myself called a hydraulic ram pump. And in turn, that hydraulic ram pump is then pumping a small portion of that inbound water, I would say roughly 100 feet in elevation rise back up the mountain, way, not 80 feet higher than where the water source is. So, um, just basically utilizing the steepness and the slope of our land, combined with 200-year-old technology when it comes to the hydraulic ram pumping knowledge and system. Um, but it's incredible. It uses no electricity or gasoline, as you would recognize most water pumps to require. And it perpetually cycles itself indefinitely. So once it takes some manual involvement to get it cycling to begin with, but once you get it cycling, um, I've heard stories from and could access it, and we built this system that incorporates a ram pump. The ram pump moves, like I said, a small portion of that water up the mountain to basically the top of our property above where our farm exists, and spills into a 2,000-gallon holding tank. Then that 2,000-gallon holding tank sits at bare minimum about 40 feet above any of the water outlets. And so then that gravity
Gravity fed.
feeds.
Yeah.
Gravity feeds our whole homestead. So um, I built a system like we talked about earlier to be able to incorporate a big powerful 220-volt electric well pump that will quickly move gobs more water up the mountain if necessary. But in the background, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, this, roughly a gallon per minute is being pumped up the mountain without any fuel, just using the science and power of nature, to feed this 2,000-gallon holding tank, and then that pressurizes low pressure, but pressurizes all of our spigots. So I joke that it's like the end of the world water system, and it's drinkable right out of the mountain. Like we tested it as soon as we discovered the water source. So um, the only thing that could stop this water system from nourishing us forever is if for some crazy reason the water source, dried up or diminished,
Right.
and uh, there's lots of springs on our mountain with our rural neighbors who, I don't suspect it's going to change. There's been numerous generations come and go that have been fed off of the spring water that comes out of this mountain. So it,
And
it's
we're
it, it's pretty unique system.
it's awesome. And did you restore that 100-year-old pump too?
Yes, yeah. Uh, to begin with, I built one out of parts
Right.
myself. Um, Became completely obsessed with off grid water, with spring water, and with ram pumps, and then uh, in the summertime we have a booth at the local farmers market to sell like our medicinal herbal teas and our herbal salves and balms, and just basically handmade things that we produce from plants and medicine here on the property. And as we're sitting there at our booth, this older gentleman came up to me and said, "Hey man, I watched your videos, I watched that ram pump thing. That's really cool. My grandparents had one of those at their old farm when I was like 6 years old. It set right out my bedroom window." And he said, I just have all these memories of hearing it operating when I was a kid. And then he proceeds to tell me that since then, his grandparents' property was sold a long time ago, and that he thinks that he's got this old ram pump that was once part of his grandparents' property, like stashed away in his garage.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'll be right back. Let me go see if I can find it. You can have it if you want it. It'll never, it's just a rusty piece of iron, and shows back up to the farmer's market with this old piece of local history, if you ask me. And
Yeah.
I, I, I told him, I was gonna, my intention was to do my best to bring it back to life and restore it, and it turned out to be just a really incredible content series of the process of tearing it apart and learning it and understanding it and rebuilding it. And now that now it looks like something that just sort of rolled off the showroom floor in 1910.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Um, before I close it out, mine for your time, Mark. Appreciate you taking the time out. Getting into gear. One of the things I always ask everyone, what's your favorite piece of gear that makes your life easy every day? Is there something that you use all the time and you're just like, man, this is a great piece of gear?
You know, ramp pump is incredible, but there's the it might sound goofy to the audience, but there I keep I keep a lighter in my pocket at all times because we have this beautiful um, crusher cone fire pit right here. It's kind of what I would consider our outdoor living room. If we ever have company to the property, we basically we all socialize out around this fire pit. Um, and a tool that has come about through me starting building constant outdoor fires has been what's called a pocket bellow. And it just looks like a collapsible antenna that you would have like on a car or something like that. But it's like it collapses down to being about you know 4 inches long at the most. It when you open it up, it is about I'd say 18 inches long, and it tapers from maybe the size of a tube of chapstick down to the tip of a Sharpie marker. And what it's used for is to reignite coals in a fire by blowing on them. So, everybody's probably familiar with like the old accordion style looking fireplace bellow that you squeeze it like an accordion and it moves air. Well, this thing is it's so goofy, but it's important enough to me that I literally put it in my pocket every day. I use it pretty much every time I start a fire out in the fire pit. And if you were, yeah, it's such a minuscule little tool, but I don't see many people talk about them and or in the preparedness world, a lot of people are including myself, are showing people how to make fire with a ferro rod and a flint and striker, um, different rudimentary versions of making fire without a lighter or a modern piece of equipment. And I'm just surprised at how few people know about these because you can take a fire that's basically it's gonna go out. If you didn't have the right tool to bring it back to life, it's gonna go out, and you can use this small little pocket tool to bring it right back to keeping you warm or cooking your food or, um, nourishing you, in any way that fire can.
Ah, it's really cool. Now I want one of those.
Yeah.
Um, and I can't go without mentioning that you have a chef set from Andrew
Oh, yeah.
Arabito at Half Ace Blades.
Yes.
Shout out to Andrew. He's been a big supporter of my journey as well, especially with I've owned a couple of his knives for many years, and then I've had Nico and Lauren from Senior Lechuga Hot Sauce on
Cool. Yeah.
last year, where
Yep.
he had the hot sauce and a
Yep.
chimichurri for them. But yeah, tell us about the chef set you got.
Man, it's, so from the I've always been a fan of half face blades in general. They make some absolutely, like functional pieces of art is what I've always considered most of the custom lines of half faces products. Um, I jokingly told told those guys a long time ago that like, I love archaeology and the thought of like digging, we find, we find different uh pieces of history buried in the earth all the time throughout the country, like to imagine 1,000 years down the road and finding a bone and turquoise inlaid, half-faced blade just
Yeah,
blows my mind because a lot of the components are you know pretty sturdy. They're gonna last through centuries worth of time, and I got a kick out of that, communicating that little side thought to them. But
that's great.
yeah, I've got numerous half face knives, and one of the most commonly used pieces of their gear is their chef set, and I it's I've always been attracted to turquoise. I love the Southwest, the Native American culture, and a lot of the silversmithing and jewelry and artwork that I've been grown magnetically to that came from that corner of the country. So when I got the chance to own a set of these chef's knives, I really w- wanted, and that's what I got was a set with turquoise inlaid, turquoise. I think it's got some brass or bronze that borders the turquoise inlay. Uh, Incredibly sharp knives. I mean, like I'm not gonna lie. I have I've had to break out the first aid kit more than once from accidental usage of my ultra sharp kitchen set from those guys. Uh, so yeah, very like just what a high quality kitchen utensil. But then on the other side of things, I've got a number of knives that are more general purpose or outdoor specific knives, and like that turkey processing and butchering day that we just talked about. Like
Yeah.
I've used their knives for all sorts of um, farm butchering stuff. Not the kitchen set, but they have a wide range of nice for any sort of activity that you could imagine. But incredible quality, incredible quality, and yeah, grateful for their support of my channel as well.
That's awesome. Um, Cast iron or stainless guy, cooking
Cast
wise?
iron, cast iron. Maybe one day when I have my dream kitchen finished, but I'm kind of a minimalistic guy based on design of the small kitchen, small storage, not a lot of not a lot of. So I just cast iron to me seems is so well rounded. I can literally throw a lid on it and put it in the oven. I can I've got just honestly, I've just got two. We've got a collection of cast iron that is kind of less commonly used in the little storage room that we have, but both Heather and I each have like a nothing fancy, maybe like a yard sale style. I always like old cast iron, so I don't know if what I'm using is an old high end, brand name or not, but um probably 10-inch, 10-inch cast iron skillet stays on the
Yeah.
stovetop constantly.
Yeah.
Um
If you got, I know like one brand that's pretty popular vintage wise is Griswold. So
Griswold, yeah.
if
Yeah.
you got any of those, they're of some value and of quality too. So,
Yes.
and
Yeah,
they go really far back
yeah,
age
I've that
wise.
that
Yeah.
that was one of the names that was coming to mind. I just hesitate to claim that that's what mine is. I think that it is, um, yeah, I'm not certain. Um, Dutch oven. It's like we've got an old cast iron Dutch oven that we love to use in the fire. Once again, fire pit utensil. Um, but yeah, I've been around fancy, lots of fancy kitchen gear in my history of working in restaurants. So I'm not turned off by any of the stainless stuff or anything like that. I just don't have the room, and it seems like this is so universally applicable to a one pan kind of guy.
Yeah. And then the other one I would say is a wok. Have you ever
Oh
used a
yeah,
wok
yeah,
and stuff? Yeah.
yes, yeah. I've got a I I'm kind of a hoarder of old things. Like if there's ever something old, obviously old and not reproduced that pops up on marketplace or something like that, I'm like I'm the first to. So I bought a wok a couple of years ago that yeah, had some cool family story. I can't remember if it came home from Vietnam or something like that with a guy that then the family owned or whatnot. But uh I own it. I haven't, definitely not an expert on using it. I actually researched a bunch of ways to build, like they kinda want a certain type of a burner for them to function best, I think, if I remember correctly. So I was always, like, at the time, investigating how to build this, high power sort of, wok cooking surface, and, uh but yeah, that'll be something that I investigate and get better at down the road, but I've got the wok here at least.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Um, One item you refuse to compromise on quality.
Oh, man. Um,
You've got a lot of, just so people know, Mark has a lot of high quality items in general.
Yeah.
But,
For
just one thing that you're like, "Hey, I'm just not gonna buy anything mediocre," or I'm not gonna
yeah,
eat,
yeah. Well, I tend to like I'm not a collector of anything nice. I usually I wind up buying high quality gear because I intend to use it
Right,
real extensively. So I don't lean towards brand names or high end products because of the reputation that they carry. I just have found that they really are a better product at the end of the day. You know, my firearms are all extremely high end manufacturers and or extremely high end components. I definitely am sort of grown past the thought of believing that you can do the same job with a lesser quality tool in that regard. Um, it's kind of like buy once, cry once, and even just like this set of half-face kitchen knives. I don't suspect I'm going to need another set of knives in my lifetime. I mean, I hope that some of these more expensive um, tools for me, tools at the end of the day, they're not a status piece or something like that. But I that's kinda checked off. No matter how fancy my kitchen gets, these knives are never gonna out fancy my next kitchen, you know what I mean? Like, so, but anymore, uh, taking it back to the topic of the podcast, like vegetables and fruit, man, I don't, I think once you begin to focus on eating clean and you put effort into it, you're it's a slippery slope. If you're not concerned, then you may never change and you may be cool with your average grocery store items. But once you begin to put effort into all aspects of becoming more healthy, then it seems like you're just doing yourself a disservice to be um buying pesticide sprayed vegetables and things like this. Just, I've become very I've become pretty set in my ways, if possible, to shop for organic fruits and vegetables. Um, it's not easy in a small corner of the country. We're not, um, but we kind of go out of our way to shop at particular places for our ingredients that we're not able to consume from our own production. And um, it kind of just goes hand in hand with a better way of living. So, yeah,
yeah,
fruits and vegetables are big on that list.
100%. We'll close it out here. Mark, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah.
Anything you want to promote, anything advice you want to give, the floor is
Uh,
yours, man.
um, no, I guess I just want to say I'm very appreciative for you to invite me onto the podcast. The origin of food, I think, is like such a beautifully broad title that everybody can incorporate what that means to them into their lifestyle. But I do hope that all of the content and sort of this simpler living way of life that I'm trying to live myself and then document and share with others uh, helps people to make steps in the right direction to becoming a better version of themselves. I think that's all we can really hope for in this crazy fast lifetime, or crazy fast world that we all live in. And yeah, the more you slow down, the more you want to slow down. And um, sometimes sometimes inspiration can come from the craziest little places, and it can stick. So I've gotten some great life-changing advice out of a 5-second clip out of a podcast that I never saw coming, that actually was something that stuck in my craw long enough that I'm like, "Oh, yeah, what why the hell am I doing that to myself? That's goofy." Um, So hopefully some of the stuff that we covered today just like scratches the surface to some deeper knowledge that people might be searching for. And um, yeah, if anybody wants to take a peek at what we're getting into here on the property in the coming year of 2026, or even any of the past projects or lifestyle you know lifestyle choices that we're exercising here on the property, basically you can search modern rural civilian on any of the major platforms, and yeah, you'll find us just failing forward on a daily basis.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. We're out.